We're going to move on to our next speaker. And our next speaker is Dr. Audrey Timm. Audrey is the technical advisor within AIPH. She's a horticultural scientist specialised in ornamental horticulture. She has covered academic research in South Africa, industry support, training and on-farm research in Australia, and promoted the connection between design and ecology in urban landscapes with the University of Sheffield in the UK. Audrey joined AIPH in 2019 and leads our Green City initiative. In fact, Audrey has been key in pulling together the program for today's event. And so we really appreciate the input and work she's put into developing what we are enjoying today. So Audrey also looks after our programs on plant health and sustainability and novelty protection. And through knowledge exchange, advocacy and networking, she supports our position as the world's champion for the power of plants. So today, she's going to introduce a project that was a major focus of her work and our work in AIPH throughout last year. And that is to launch today our Green City Guidelines and the update of Green City Guidelines that has been produced from before. So this is an essential digital resource providing evidence that supports innovative policy and practice in green cities. So pass over now to Audrey. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you in your part of the world as we celebrate Earth Day. I'm Audrey Timm, Technical Advisor to AIPH, and this is an introduction to the AIPH 2020 Green City Guidelines. The Green City Guidelines were published as a printed booklet in 2011 and have been available for download as a PDF on the AIPH website. They were put together by a team of expert individuals and organisations with funding from the Dutch government. Our work in preparing the AIPH 2020 Green City Guidelines was made possible by funding from the Council of Agriculture Chinese Taipei, with the assistance of Chinese Taipei TFDA. We recognise the contribution made by experts and partners in developing the original content. The AIPH 2020 Green City Guidelines is a refresh and a relaunch of the 2011 guidelines as a digital resource, making them more widely available and easier to access. As an online resource, it is possible for the guidelines to be translated into many different languages online on the AIPH website, making it globally accessible and relevant. This is an example of the digital translation. Of the 45 countries represented in the audience today, we welcome many delegates from Poland. As well as having the capacity for rough online translation, the AIPH 2020 Green City Guidelines have been translated into a summary brochure by TFDA. This initiates greater interest and delivers the message widely that no single green solution can solve the complex problems that cities face. It requires an integrated and citywide vision to embrace the multiple benefits of living green. The summary brochure includes translation of the case study of the Liuchang River restoration in Taichung. The guidelines are not intending to be a best practice document because best practice has a strong connection to context and place, responding to climate, culture, and regulations. The guidelines set out principles that can translate across context, positioning them as a resource that provides fundamental solutions and responses to many of the challenges of urban life. You can view the guidelines on the AIPH website, and I offer you now a short outline of the content. There are 6 key areas in which living green in cities delivers quantifiable benefits. Economy. Quality green infrastructure increases house and office values, either rental or freehold, by providing a more attractive environment. Health. Residents and workers are happier and healthier when they live and work in green surroundings. Social interaction. Greener environments encourage people to spend more time in outdoor spaces, which in turn increases the rates of social interaction and mixing and builds stronger communities. Ecology. Bringing green into the city can increase diverse plant and animal communities by providing a wider range of ecological habitats. Water. Water management and climate change resilience are very closely linked and relate directly to the management of the urban green environment. Climate and pollution. Living green moderates the urban heat island effect and plays a role in limiting local air pollution and reducing flood risk. The Green City Principles position living green as a fundamental solution to many of the challenges of contemporary life, from stress, burnout, or obesity to climate change preparedness and city resilience. We argue that investment in green infrastructure is repaid many times over in terms of the benefits it brings. And you will notice that these 6 key areas form the categories for the AIPH World Green City Awards. The Green City Principles are presented in these guidelines in 4 landscape scales. Green cities. On a city scale, the inclusion of living green relies on integrated planning. Green neighbourhoods. Implementing urban greening at a neighbourhood scale enables context to cultural and climatic variations and focus on specific goals, such as water management and biodiversity. Green streets. Many of the benefits of living green in urban environments are experienced on a local scale, such as air quality improvements and reduction of the urban heat island effect. Green buildings. Hard infrastructure that incorporates living green and nature-based solutions reduces the environmental impact and supports energy efficiency and resilience. Within each of these landscape scales, the guidelines present practical advice given about the benefits that can be gained and how to implement these in both existing developments and new developments. Each landscape scale is accompanied by a case study that illustrates how the Green City Principles have successfully been implemented. Each case study was presented using documentation that was publicly available and with interviews by key stakeholders. By consulting practitioners and authorities who were directly involved in the project, we present case studies with deeper insights into the motivation, delivery mechanisms, adoption challenges, and broader learning. The Green City Scale case study is London National Park City, which relies on an integrated approach to city planning and highlights the importance of mobilizing people in urban greening initiatives. As an example of a green neighborhood, we present a case study on Chicago's 606, a 2.7-mile linear park that delivers open space, alternative transport, and community interest. For an example of green streets, we look to Garibaldi Street in Lyon and discover how an expressway was turned into a solution to urban heat. And the case study for the green building scale is Bosco Verticale in Milan, considered to be a milestone in urban architecture, the success of which is too often under-attributed to supremely clever plant selection and management. A new feature in the AIPH 2020 guidelines are case studies that represent different city contexts. We consider different climates. Representing greening in an arid climate is the case study on Reem Downtown Abu Dhabi. This master plan considers sustainability at its core, delivering enhanced quality of life through a new perspective on open space and landscape provisions. The case study on the Tai Chung Green Corridor describes enhanced use of a local plant palette to increase biodiversity in a tropical climate, also creating opportunities for sustainable travel and leisure. The urban forest in Melbourne is an exemplar in its attitude to delivery and communication, in delivering solutions to city problems in this coastal Mediterranean-type climate. We consider different city typologies. In Hong Kong, where 99% of residents have no access to a private garden, delivering urban greening in this high-density city went to the rooftops. The challenge of introducing new green space into a heritage landscape was overcome in Barcelona with new approaches to existing green spaces and ambitious street reclamation. You will hear more about this case study later in this conference. And finally, as a case study presenting the green city of the future, Almere in the Netherlands describes an approach to designing a completely new city. Full details of this case study follow. In all of these case studies, the development of the project was considered from the design and implementation stage, extracting insights into why it was successful, what was learned during the project, and what influence it may have had on other projects and sustainability decisions and policies, locally, nationally, and internationally. Another important addition to the AIPH 2020 Green City Guidelines are the sector briefs. These present short reports that context cross-disciplinary relevance to illustrate the importance of horticulture to other sectors. This extends the audience of the guidelines beyond the horticultural industry and positions living green as an essential part of all aspects of city planning and development. In this section, we also describe the contribution that horticulture makes to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The AIPH 2020 Green City Guidelines are a resource to narrow the gaps and creates bridges between science, practice, and policy. Through broad and active distribution of the guidelines, we aspire to stimulate city change. There are three main types of change that relate to our initiatives and activities. Incremental change refers to small changes within an existing system. Transitional change brings about improvements in existing systems. Transformational change is a system-wide change, and it is now widely recognized that cities need transformational change to be sustainable and resilient and provide healthy, livable city spaces for all residents. It is not enough to do what we currently do better. We need to completely rethink our strategies and undertake a fundamental shift in what we accept. If you consider the theory of transformational change, you will find that elements of transformational change often already exist in a system, and it is the drivers of change that bring them into view. Crisis is often the trigger for transformational change when it becomes impossible to function effectively under the current system, and we see so much of this in our cities today. What we are searching for are novel and adaptive approaches in governance and practice at the local, regional, and global scales. The AIPH 2020 Green City Guidelines provide the evidence that supports this transformational shift and gives examples of case studies where this has been realized. In conclusion, it was very encouraging that the content of the 2011 guidelines is still relevant. Obviously, some of the economic data has changed, but the foundation principles still very much apply. The intention of the AIPH 2020 Green City Guidelines is to position ornamental horticulture, plants, the living green, in every conversation and decision taken about city form and function. There is a wealth of information that is being produced about the contribution that plants make to cities being livable and resilient, and this needs to be brought into the conversation. Our plan to keep the digital guidelines representing the latest activities, latest knowledge and trends is through the continuous addition of case studies. We will both commission new case studies and invite and accept case studies of projects around the world to include on the guidelines website. Please visit the AIPH website to read the guidelines in detail, and please make contact if you have a case study that you would like to present. Thank you. Thank you.